All right, thanks for joining us in another video on Guardian Safe and Locks YouTube channel. Today we're going to discuss what are the different types of key cutting machines. So usually if you're going to break down key cutting machines, you can break it down into two different categories right off the bat. You have key originators, where you create the original key, and then you have key duplicators, and the duplicators make a copy of an original key, or a copy of a copy if you have a copy. But duplicators make copies, the originators cut original keys per spec. So whenever we're cutting these keys, like we have to cut an original key, there are certain measurements, there's certain distance left to right, and a certain distance in depth, measurements in depth on the key that matters. You have your left to right for your spacing of, like, if this is your whole metal that you have to cut on this space, you know, where exactly left to right is your first cut? Well, it's exactly at this increment, and your second cut's at this increment, your third's at this, fourth's this, right? So each type of manufacturer, for instance, Schlage or Kwikset, they have different measurements. Their location of their first cut, their first location of their cut is gonna be a different distance from the head of the key than a Schlage will be. And their one depth cut, or their two cut, or their three cut, and that refers to the depth at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, their depth of that one cut is completely different than what Schlage's one cut depth is. It could be, Schlage's could be like this deep, and then Kwikset's can be this deep for a 1. And then Kwikset's 2 could be this deep, and then Kwikset's 2 could be that deep. So all manufacturers have different spaces and depths. So when you're cutting an original key, you have to get that original blank that you're gonna use, and based off the blank that you're gonna cut, you have to get the corresponding, you know, card or information for the machine to know, say, oh, this is a Kwikset key, oh, and this is where their 1 cut, their 2 cut, their 3 cut is, and this is how deep their 1, their 2, their 3, their 4, their 5 is in depth. So all these different manufacturers have different spaces and depths. So if I grab a key here, for instance, just to clarify so you understand, I'm gonna hold this up real clear here. Hopefully you can read those numbers on it there. Go and zoom in. You can see the numbers on it. Some of these, the originals, will have these numbers on the head of it. That is the actual cuts to the key. So it's a 37385, right? So if you notice, that shallow cut there, 3, 7, goes deeper, 3, right? And I believe it's 8, then a 5, right? 37385, right? So this 8 is slightly deeper than that 7 right there. So this is just Schlage's. This is where their first cut is, their second, their third, their fourth, their fifth. If you notice, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 depths there. So each one of these manufacturers, based off the key blank you're gonna be cutting, says, well, if you're gonna be cutting it on an SC1 or an SC4 or a KW1 or a KW10 key, whatever the key may be, this is your measurements, and these are the specs that you need to follow for that particular key, okay? So I'll get back to that in a minute when we talk about the originator. So, but if I had a key like this and I wanted to make a copy, that's what this machine is right here. Many different manufacturers, many different models. Most of them all have pretty much the same functions. You might have, you know, a cooler handle, cooler jaws, or different design, but for the most part, you put one key in here, and this rolls over it and mimics the same key over here, right? So this is a Silica Speed 044 duplicator. There's many different duplicators that do the exact same thing. We have Ilco 044, I believe, is the ones we used originally. Silica was one I got a couple years later, but most of them have your adjustments here. So if it's not cutting deep enough, if I make a copy but it's not working because it's not cutting deep enough, I could adjust this, loosen it, and make it cut a little deeper, and align it, get it back synced. And it has different jaws, and the jaws can spin based off the type of key you're needing, and they have different things like this that help you indicate and line up the keys, stuff like that. So this is a duplicator, okay? So this will make a copy of a key. So then we come over to here, this is HPC. HPC has same thing, it's just a duplicator. Put one in here, put the blank over here. It's gonna roll over this, and it's gonna cut the exact same thing that's over here on this key. This is just a different version of it. Not a big fan of the HPC machine. Matter of fact, I will never buy another one again. So I won't buy one of these again. And to tell you the truth, I'm not too big of a fan of that one either, actually. There's been a lot better ones out there. It's not bad, but I'll say that there are better options for the same price or cheaper, which I like the Ilco better than the Silica actually. So those are both duplicators, key duplicators. They've cut all your standard key blanks, nearly all of them. Then you have what's called your HPC, or we call it HPC Blitz machine. If you look on the front here, it says the original Blitz. So it's a Blitz, it's a 1200 CMB. So a Blitz 1200 CMB. This is the industry standard pretty much in originating key. So this is what everybody uses. So you have an adjustable jaw here, just like you did on that. And then you have different blades that you can take off and put on here. And then you have a book full of cards, which I have over there. And those book full of cards, the needles from left to right, you know what I'm talking about when it moves the key left to right to get it in the right spot. And then the depths, you know, this particular one is for a Chrysler, so it has only 4 depths, but it has 8 cuts. And this card, I'll show you right here, slides into here. Like I said, there's different blades and jaws you have to use. But basically, this one here moves the key closer to the blade, which means a deeper cut. And this one here moves it left to right, which it tells you where your first cut is, your second, your third, your fourth is, based off the needle lining up with the lines on the card. So once you cut an original key, then you can make a duplicate. But if you don't have an original, you can't copy it, right? So you have to have some way of making an original. So this will originate nearly all basic automotive keys and regular house keys, commercial keys, residential, doesn't matter, boats, RV, it does everything, right? The only thing it doesn't do is like high security things, which I'll show you that right now. So, and the cool thing about this machine also, by the way, it does have an adapter. It has some other parts with it. This adapts onto the jaw and you can get it all set up right to where it'll cut tubular keys on here. It'll actually cut original tubular keys on it. So it's originator. And what I mean by tubular is those little circular keys. Barrel keys, couldn't think of the name. They're called barrel keys. So anyway, so you can get a little bit more out of this by getting that adapter kit and the other little pieces that go with it, and you can cut those barrel keys. Now, if you're doing a master key system where you're cutting a ton of keys, sometimes doing this left, deep in, next cut, deep down, next cut, go up, down. It'll take some time doing those keys. So if you're cutting a lot of keys, some people invest in what's called a blue punch, which is what we have 2 of them here. This is about $2,200 machine, $2,200 machine. This one over here, this HPC machine, I want to say is about $800. That one over there is probably around $1,300, I want to say, something like that. And like I said, this one's around $2,200. And it comes with a whole book full of cards and extra blades and stuff. These punches here are about just a little over $1,000. But this only cuts Schlage keys, an SC4 or an SC1, which is the same thing, it's just a 5-pin and a 6-pin. And this one here only cuts best IC core keys, A2 system. So whenever you're doing master keys, you're making a lot of keys, it's just easier to take this, you set it up ready, and right here you have numbers, and it sets it all the way to the first cut. You put the blank in, brand new blank key, and then you say, okay, first one's a 5, and you pick the 5 down. Next one's a 3, next one's a this, and you do it. And then it punches your key and you're done. You take your key out, reset it, next key. So these are real handy. So these are originators technically, but they're manual originators. They're just they're just punching that little sliver out of the key so it works. Now, a different type of originator. This one actually is a duplicator and an originator, but it's specifically made for automotive high security keys. So you can do different adjustments and changes on here and all sorts of different things. So I'm gonna also power this up too to show you how it works here in a second. Okay, so this one here, this one also has a different jaw. You can take this and slide this piece out and put in this. But this is a Condor XC Mini. It's actually an automated machine. So you can change the jaws around, do what you need to. That machine there has a blade that's spinning like this and the keys like this, and it literally just cuts a divot into the key, right? And that's what you usually see, is you see a divot being cut into the key. Well, this is different. This cuts a key like this, where it lays flat and it spins and it grooves out what it needs to groove out. And then you have to flip it, change it, and then do the same thing. So this machine will cut originals. It'll also duplicate. You could also have it decipher it for you. Like, I don't know what the cuts are to this. So you put it in here, read it. It reads it and it'll tell you what the cuts are. So it's really neat. This has a lot of different things you can do with it, but this machine is great, especially for the money. This is about a little over $3,000. And for what it does, that's a great deal. So you can decipher keys, cut high security keys, originate them, duplicate them. It'll even correct them too. Like you can say correct it. Like if it sees a worn key, it'll read it and say, okay, well, this is what it was, even though it's a little off now because it's been worn. So this is a great machine. So that's for cutting originals and duplicating specifically high security keys, which are the ones I showed you. And this is the same thing. This is an older machine that I bought off somebody. I don't know how much it cost originally, but this one here is an old Ilco Orion machine, KD56. It's just a manual, left to right, floats around, brings us down. Lets you cut the key. That's all it is to it. And you just line the key up in here, the flat key, and it cuts the grooves out. So that's just a duplicator though. This one right here is a new one. This is X-Horse. That's an X-Horse Condor XC Mini, but this is the new Dolphin. It's a mobile one. It's kind of heavy, real heavy, probably about 30 pounds. Turn it on. It's automated also, but this one works with a device. Let me get that device real quick and I'll show you. Well, that's that. Where's the piece at? Well, I had it here. Oh, there it is. All right, so we've got the Key Tool Max. This little device here you can deal with, and you can put the cuts in here and have it do what it needs to do, duplicate or originate keys. So this also will work as this device that goes with it, which I'll mention it because we're talking about it. It'll pick up signals, so you can hit the signal to it. It'll tell you if your remote's good, if it's putting out the right frequency, things like that. And you could also attach this to the OBD. There's a little OBD device that you can buy separately that will allow you to program car keys into vehicles as well. And the last machine we had was the tubular duplicator. It's called the Scotsman by HPC. You put the key in here. It's a tubular key, circular barrel key, and you put the blank in there, and you turn this, and then it cuts it and copies it. So other than that, the only other machines, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm not thinking of, but the only other common ones I could think about would be ones that cut steel keys. Now, if you ever see a safe deposit box key, it's not like that where it's like ramped up. It's like straight down, box, straight up. The cuts are really blocky, almost like Tetris blocks. So to cut those, you have to pull the key away, pull it up, pull it away, push it up, pull it down, put it up, because it's just cutting straight lines. So that's the only thing we don't have in here. I think they're about $1,000, something like that, to cut those, but you only need them for safe deposit box keys, pretty much, I believe. Anyway, hopefully that helps you out. That's most of the machines you're gonna need in key cutting machines in our industry. You have duplicators and originators, and then you have high security automotive keys, and then you have all your other kind of keys that can cut on other machines. So thanks for tuning in again. We appreciate the support as always. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. We appreciate the support. Hopefully this helps you understand key cutting machines and the different types that are out there. And you can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We're on all the different social media platforms, LinkedIn, and we appreciate the support as always.